The women in tech that we have in our environment are also trained in that space, addressing the issues that are within that corporate environment.
Woman Crush, where we are putting emphasis on women in the tech industry. Namibia Diamond Trading Company strives for women in leadership development, specifically in this industry previously dominated by men. So stay tuned for a captivating conversation as I'm joined by Helena Mootseng, the Corporate Affairs Manager at NDTC, for more information. Let's welcome her. Good afternoon, Helena, and thank you for joining us here at 99 FM.
Treza, thank you so very much, and good afternoon to all the listeners.
It's a pleasure to have you. Let's get straight into it. Just briefly explain the importance of the NDTC's focus, especially with women in tech.
Great question, Treza. But I think I want to start off by perhaps sharing a little bit on who NDTC really is and what we do that brings us to the conversation of women in tech.
Yes.
NDTC is a company responsible for sorting, valuations, and the marketing of Namibian diamonds. And those diamonds that are particularly mined by Namibia Holdings, that would be diamonds that are mined by Dep Marine offshore, and diamonds that are mined by Namibia onshore. So our day-to-day role is really to make sure that we not just distinguish the value of those diamonds, but that we categorize the value of those diamonds in the different types of categories that we have diamonds in. And once we've assigned a value to it, to ensure that Namibia gets the best revenue out of the sales of that diamond. So that's really principally what we do. I always say that as a result of that, we really are very keenly trained in how to distinguish value, how to add value and how to distinguish value. And one of the things that I think we want to do in the women in tech space is exactly that, is to distinguish the value that women bring to the tech space.
Yes.
Now, in Namibia, one would find that even when you sit and you think off the top of your head, where do I find women that are in the tech space, whether it's soft, whether it's services, or whether it's equipment, or whether it's whatever it may be, where do I find them? Programmers. Oftentimes we don't really know where to go to, because I think that space has been operational in a way, but in a way that it's not interfacing well with all of us. So you'll find a lot of times that you have women in the tech space that are working in corporate entities, but in the IM departments and things like that. So in the entrepreneurship space, number one, it might be a bit of a challenge to find women that are in that space. And even if they are, where do you find them? So we wanted to answer that question because we understand that we're in the digital age.
Yes.
And it's an age where that space is accelerating very, very quickly, and we want to ensure that there's a light shined on what women are doing in that space, and that there's an inclusive environment created for women to be able to bring about the solutions that they bring in the entrepreneurship space. So that's really where NDTC came into this conversation. We wanted to make sure that we create a platform where women in the tech space can bring to the fore the products and the services that they have, but also create a platform where we can casually, as we are now, have a discussion around what's happening in that space and how is it relevant to women. So if I'm a young student on my way to one of the tertiary institutions pursuing a career in digital learning or in IM or all those spaces, should I just be studying so that I can go and work in the IT department somewhere, or should I perhaps consider the different types of roles that are available for professionals in that space that can be inclusive of women?
I think you actually answered that first question perfectly, Helena. Thank you so much. And you did mention, the tech industry has for a long time been a male-dominated industry, and it has often been criticized for the lack of diversity, pertaining to that. So what strategies does the NDTC have in place to increase the gender, diversity when it comes to the tech industry, specifically here in Namibia?
So there's two ways that we're really looking at. So first of all, we also acknowledge that we're not the only ones who are trying to do something in this space.
Yes.
I know that we are all trying to do something, perhaps just from different perspectives. What we are doing is we have two distinct products that we're looking at. The one is to create a platform, a network platform, where women from the tech space can interact with one another, but also women outside of the tech space can interact with women in that space as a place of learning and growth growth, but also is a place where you can kind of inspire young minds, young female minds to pursue careers in that space. It's a platform where you can bring conversation that relates to either opportunities or challenges in that space that probably need a light to be shined on, so that we can start to unpack what that means and what needs to happen in order to move the needle forward in that space. So that's the one aspect, the networking aspect. The second aspect is to sort of build capacity with women entrepreneurs in that space, so that their knowledge is not really just on their specialization, but also as an entrepreneur who specializes in that space. I often say, when you look at artistic people, for example, they're great artists, but they're not often great business people. So you need to arm them with the business skill as well, so that they know how to sell or how to package their art. So that's exactly kind of what we're trying to do in the tech space. You can be excellent at what you're doing, but it might not translate into excellent business skills.
That's the thing,
we need to sort of augment that and help you understand what would it take for you in that environment to bring yourself forward. Now, this has been a very interesting space to sort of just explore and listen to some of the things that are going. I've met women that are programmers, for example, and I was a little bit taken back by this, because I was like, there's so much going on that I think even just in the space of how our everyday life as women have got challenges that can be reduced by programming. There are opportunities there where young people, of course, can take an advantage. Then you have the AI space, where there is so much happening. We have to learn so much so quickly that the people who must also interpret that language, the products and the services in that space, ideally can come from the tech space. So there's a lot of things that can be unpacked in that space, but we're just looking excitedly, obviously, at creating a conversation that spurs the energy towards that direction, so that we can all begin to understand where are the opportunities here. A simple example, I was reading, I think it's in today's paper, I'm not sure which paper it was, but it was talking about a pensioner that had lost their ID card and subsequently suffered quite a bit of financial loss because of what was done to that ID card. And I keep making this example when I talk about women in tech and the social opportunities that are there. Should we have a programmer that develops a program where when your ID card is lost, it's flagged at every institution simultaneously? And who will answer that question? Who will create that product? I'm not saying that it can uniquely be created by women, but I'm saying that there are problems that we have in our social structures that can be resolved by people with tech experience
and skill.
And what we are trying to do is create conversations where we throw some of the social issues on the table and say, there's something that we can do about this, particularly for women that can address some of these challenges. So that's really the long and the short.
The long and the short of it. Just quickly, Helena, if you can provide an example for us, of a successful woman in tech at the NDTC, who have, of course, made significant contributions and significant change to the industry and, of course, the company as well. If you can give an example of a woman like that.
NDTC, as mentioned earlier, is really a company that's in the diamond sector, where we are responsible for sorting, valuing and marketing diamonds. The women in tech that we have in our environment are also trained in that space, addressing the issues that are within that corporate environment. But because we recognize that that's not the only environment in which women can operate within the tech environment, we want to just open up the conversation and hear, are there other places that we need to be promoting women in, particularly in the tech space? So that's the first one. I think the second one is when you look on the continent, and I think 99 FM has been doing a really, really good job by shining the light on women in tech on the continent in different spaces. So in some countries you have formalized structures where the women call themselves women in tech, and those platforms would then be a platform where they unpack issues that pertain to women in that space, but also challenge the issues that need to be challenged about women in tech. And lastly, also address perhaps problems that can get solutions, or that can drive conversations towards solutions from that space. So I think in Namibia, that's kind of the thinking, moving towards that direction where Namibia can have its own women in tech. And those platforms don't necessarily just benefit from the local people that affiliate to it, but they can also log into the continental, the global, and from that perspective, again, there's opportunity for us to learn and grow in our understanding, but also in our offering, and also in what opportunities women really need to think about, whether it's, and not just women, what opportunities we need to think about creating, whether it's from a legislative perspective, whether it's from a capacity building perspective, whether it's just from a networking and a learning and growth perspective, but all these different dimensions that can come together, and we can sort of grow that conversation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Before we let you go, Helena, just, any advice that you might have to the young girl child who might be listening right now, who's considering, stepping into the tech industry, but is a bit skeptical, a bit, unsure if they should, if she should or not. Any advice you have for that young woman who's locked in right now?
My dear, this is your time. This is absolutely your time. There's never been a better time than now, particularly in the tech environment. This is the time to make your voice heard. This is the time to be seen. This is the time to immerse yourself into, if that is the aspiration that you have, this is the time where you need to immerse yourself in the environment where the conversation is about tech, where the environment, it doesn't matter if you understand it from the onset. Over time, you will begin to understand the capacity. But also, this is the time where you need to say to yourself, I am more than an employee. My mindset is more than an employee's mindset. I can actually become a game changer. I can actually become a leader in this space by distinguishing myself in a way that I can bring solutions to the table, not just for myself, for my community, but for the country and perhaps the globe as a whole.
I love that. Helena, thank you so much for coming to share with us. Absolutely love the conversation. I definitely hope we'll be having more women in tech come in also from the NDTC to come share with us their journey and how they stepped into the industry. Thank you so much for coming to share with us. And hopefully we'll speak to you again soon.
No, thank you so much, Treza. And I definitely am one of those people who does tune in and make sure that I listen to the Women in Tech segment that you guys share, because the wealth of experience and the wealth of knowledge that comes through that portfolio is just something that I'm just like, as women, we really need to rally. We need to hasten what we're doing so that we're not left behind and don't feel excluded, not necessarily because we are excluded, but because we may not be doing enough to be included.
I like that. Thank you so much once again, Helena. It's Helena Mootseng in studio, of course, coming through for today's Woman Crush segment. She is the Corporate Affairs Manager at the Namibia Diamond Trading Company. If you missed out on this interview, guess what? You can always listen to it on the 99 FM app once again, but you have to download the app first, register, and then you can go ahead and have a listen to this interview once again. Treza in the afternoon on 99 FM.
99 FM's Woman Crush.
Women in Tech Edition.